You know that moment when you're standing on your front porch, coffee mug in hand, watching a tow truck hoist a massive dumpster into the air with your neighbor's shiny Lexus trapped inside like some kind of twisted car burrito? Yeah, that was me last summer, in the middle of Pine Hollow Lane, soaking in the sweet, sweet chaos of justice finally being served. Let me take you back to how it all went down, because this story, man, it's one for the ages. My wife, Emma, and I had just moved into our dream home in the Crestwood Pines neighborhood. A quiet little slice of suburbia where kids still play tag in the cul-de-sac and the streetlights flicker on just as the fireflies start to glow. We'd spent years cramped in a downtown apartment, saving every penny for this, our own two-story colonial with a wraparound porch, a backyard big enough for a swing set someday, and a driveway we could actually park our beat-up Toyota Corolla in. The day we closed, we collapsed into bed, exhausted but grinning like idiots, thinking we'd finally made it. But the very next morning, I shuffled to the kitchen, bleary-eyed, ready to unpack, and froze at the sight outside our window. There, smack in the middle of our driveway, was a hulking green dumpster, the kind you'd see at a construction site, blocking every inch of access from the sidewalk to our garage door. Emma wandered in, still in her oversized sleep shirt, rubbing her eyes. "Babe, did you order a dumpster?" she asked, squinting through the glass. I just shook my head, dumbfounded. We stepped outside, barefoot on the cool concrete, circling this beast of a thing. It was brand new, stamped with Evergreen Disposal in bold white letters. But it wasn't empty. There were a few hedge trimmings, a stack of fancy outdoor cushions, and what looked like a marble bird bath. This wasn't random. Someone had put it here on purpose. And then I heard it, the sharp click-clack of heels on pavement, like a metronome with an attitude. Enter Linda Harper, our across-the-street neighbor and, as she quickly informed us, the president of the Crestwood Pines Homeowners Association. Linda was in her late 50s, with a blonde bob so perfect it could have been sculpted, a blazer that screamed, I mean business, and a clipboard she wielded like a scepter. Her smile was all teeth, no warmth. The kind you'd see on a real estate agent trying to sell you a haunted house. "Good morning," she chirped, like she hadn't just hijacked our driveway. "I'm Linda, your HOA president. I had this dumpster placed here for my landscaping project. It's just more practical this way. Keeps the street clear for traffic." I blinked, trying to process her logic. I explained, as politely as I could, that we needed our driveway, that our car was now parked 2 blocks away, that we had friends coming over to help us settle in. Linda waved me off like I was a pesky fly. "Oh, it's just temporary, dear," she said, her voice dripping with condescension. "A few days, a week tops. Besides, as HOA president, I have the authority to designate community improvement zones. You're new, so you'll get used to how things work around here." Emma and I exchanged a look, the kind that says, "Are we really dealing with this right now?" We were HOA newbies, unsure if Linda was bluffing or if she actually had this kind of power. She promised to email us the bylaws and strutted back to her house, heels clicking like a victory march. That was our first taste of Linda, and let me tell you, it only got worse from there. The next few days were a nightmare. Our Corolla sat parked on a side street, forcing us to hike back and forth for every little thing. Forgotten phone chargers, grocery runs, you name it. A furniture delivery we'd scheduled got canceled when the driver couldn't get near our house. My brother, who'd driven an hour to help us unpack, took one look at the situation, shook his head, and turned around. Meanwhile, Linda's landscaping project was turning into a full-blown estate makeover. What started as trimming her azaleas morphed into new stone walkways, a koi pond, and a pergola that looked like it belonged in a vineyard. Her crew tossed debris into our dumpster, but more often, Linda used it as her personal storage unit, fancy wicker furniture, bags of premium mulch, even a boxed-up gazebo. And then, on day 5, I saw something that made my jaw hit the floor. Linda pulled up in her gleaming silver Lexus RX, rolled right into our driveway, and parked inside the dumpster. The front half of her SUV was literally sitting on the dumpster's metal floor, the back half on our concrete, like she'd turned our property into her private garage. I was done playing nice. I marched across the street, knocked on her door, and when she answered, gardening gloves on, looking annoyed, I pointed at her car and said, "Linda, this is ridiculous. You can't park your car in a dumpster that's blocking our driveway." She didn't even blink. "Oh, honey," she said, like she was explaining colors to a toddler. This is perfectly legal under HOA emergency protocols. I'm maximizing space efficiency. You'll thank me when the neighborhood looks pristine. I stood there, speechless, as she shut the door in my face. That night, Emma and I hit the internet, diving into HOA laws like we were prepping for a bar exam. What we found was a game changer. HOAs can set rules about paint colors or lawn ornaments, but they can't just commandeer your driveway without written consent. And any dumpster on private property? That needs a city permit. I called the city planning office the next morning, and a clerk named Janet, who sounded like she'd heard every neighbor horror story, confirmed no permits had been issued for our address. She transferred me to code enforcement, where I filed a complaint, and the officer, a guy named Tom, set up an inspection for the next day. He even chuckled, saying, "Oh, Crestwood Pines? Yeah, we've had calls about that HOA before." Next, I called Evergreen Disposal. The dispatcher was mortified when I explained the situation. Their records showed Linda had rented the dumpster and specifically requested it be placed at our address. When I told them it was unauthorized and breaking city codes, they apologized profusely, but said the earliest they could move it was next week due to their schedule. The kicker? Linda was fully liable for any violations. I hung up, feeling a spark of hope, and made one last call to Apex Towing, a company our insurance guy swore by. The dispatcher, Maria, said they could tow vehicles from illegal spots with city approval and told me to wait for the code enforcement report. Things were starting to come together. The next afternoon, Officer Tom rolled up in a city truck, clipboard in hand, looking like he'd seen every code violation known to man. He measured the dumpster, snapped photos from every angle, and noted Linda's Lexus parked inside like it was the most normal thing in the world. He rattled off the violations: no permit, blocking private property, obstructing the public right-of-way, improper vehicle storage. Linda must have had a sixth sense, because she came striding out of her house, clipboard in tow, ready to throw her weight around. "Officer, I'm Linda Harper, HOA president," she said, all smiles, like she was hosting a garden party. "This is a community improvement project, fully within my authority." Tom just kept writing on his tablet, asking for permits she couldn't produce. Her smile faltered as he explained that city codes don't bend for HOA titles. By the time he handed her a citation and a 24-hour deadline to fix it, she was red-faced, stammering about emergency protocols that didn't exist. That night, Emma and I sat over takeout, weighing our options. Linda hadn't budged. Her Lexus was still in the dumpster, and she hadn't called Evergreen to move it. We had the city's backing, Tom's case number, and a tow company on speed dial. It was time to act. The next morning, I called Apex Towing, gave them the details, and by 10:30, a massive tow truck roared up, driven by a guy named Dave who looked like he could bench press the dumpster itself. Dave took one look at the setup and grinned. "In 20 years, I've never towed a car and a dumpster together," he said. "This is gonna be fun." As Dave hooked up his chains, Linda burst out of her house in a silk robe and bunny slippers, her hair a mess, screaming like a banshee. "What do you think you're doing?" she shrieked, waving her phone like a weapon. Dave calmly showed her the work order, complete with Tom's case number, and said, "Ma'am, this is city authorized. Your car's parked illegally." Linda snatched the paper, scanning it, muttering about lawsuits and gross overreach. She tried to argue that the dumpster was her designated community space, but Dave just kept working, unfazed. When the hydraulics kicked in and her Lexus started to lift, still half inside the dumpster, she lost it. She actually tried to climb into the driver's seat, like she could drive it out midair, but the car was already tilted 3 feet off the ground. Dave stopped the lift, called for backup, and within minutes, 2 cops showed up. The officers, clearly veterans of neighborhood drama, reviewed Dave's paperwork and told Linda to step back or face charges for interfering. She launched into her HOA spiel, but they shut her down fast. "Call your lawyer if you want," one cop said. But this tow's happening. By now, the whole street was watching old Mrs. Callahan with her tea, the Martinez kids on their bikes, even the mailman slowing down to gawk. The tow truck groaned as it lifted the dumpster and Lexus together, a surreal sight, like something out of a Michael Bay movie. Linda ran alongside, yelling about the mayor's office and Dave's job. But her voice faded as the truck rumbled away, her precious SUV swaying in the air. The aftermath was pure chaos, in the best way. Neighbors flooded our porch, sharing their own Linda horror stories. Apparently, she'd been terrorizing Crestwood Pines for years, from fining people over unapproved flower pots to trying to ban basketball hoops. Mrs. Callahan said Linda once threatened to tow her car over a single weed in her lawn. The Martinez family got a nasty letter about their kids' chalk drawings. That afternoon, we got a call from an HOA board member, Rachel Kim, who apologized profusely. She said Linda had acted alone, without board approval, and they were holding an emergency meeting to deal with her. That meeting was a circus. The community center was packed, with residents lining up to air their grievances. One guy talked about Linda's crusade against his tacky Christmas lights. Another woman said Linda tried to fine her for planting roses without permission. Emma and I shared our story, and the room erupted in gasps when we got to the towing part. Linda tried to defend herself, claiming she was a visionary leader, making tough calls for the community. Nobody bought it. The board voted to censure her, strip her of most powers, and set new rules requiring board approval for any major decisions. Linda stormed out, muttering about small-minded fools. Over the next week, the fallout kept coming. The HOA reimbursed us for our parking hassles and canceled deliveries. The city slapped Linda with a $2,500 fine for her code violations, thanks to Tom's airtight report. Someone, probably one of the Martinez kids, posted a video of the tow on TikTok, and it went viral, racking up thousands of shares with captions like HOA Karen gets owned. The local paper ran a story. HOA chief's car towed in dumpster debacle, and suddenly, Linda was the town's favorite villain. She called the editor, demanding a retraction, but they had all the receipts, citations, photos. Neighbor quotes. She was sunk. The ripple effects were bigger than we expected. Other HOAs in town started cleaning house, scared of their own Linda moments. Linda's landscaping crew bailed, leaving her yard a mess of dirt piles and half-laid stones, which got her more citations from the city. A month later, a lawyer named Mark Torres knocked on our door, representing a group of neighbors who wanted to sue Linda and the HOA for years of harassment. We joined in, along with 5 other families, and the case started to snowball. An audit of HOA finances found Linda had blown $12,000 on unapproved projects, including our dumpster. The board's insurance company freaked out, demanding reforms or they'd drop coverage. Linda's empire was crumbling. 6 months later, the HOA had a new president, Rachel, who ran on transparency and actually listened to people. Emma joined the landscaping committee, and I helped with budget oversight, determined to keep things fair. Linda put her house up for sale, but it sat empty. No one wanted to buy into her legal mess. Her Lexus was gone, replaced by a used Nissan, and her once pristine yard looked like a war zone. The woman who'd ruled Crestwood Pines like a queen was now dodging neighbors, sneaking in and out like a ghost. Looking back, that dumpster saga was a crucible for us. It wasn't just about getting our driveway back. It was about learning to stand up, to dig into the rules, to fight for what's right. Emma and I became the go-to people for HOA advice, even speaking at a community workshop about homeowners' rights. Our story spread, helping others push back against petty tyrants in their own neighborhoods. Crestwood Pines is different now, friendlier, fairer, a real community. But every time I pull into our driveway, I can't help but smile, picturing that Lexus dangling in the air, Linda's screams echoing down the street. So what do you think? Was towing Linda's car the ultimate power move, or did we go too far? Have you ever dealt with an HOA nightmare, or a neighbor who thought they owned the block? Drop a comment, share your stories. I'm dying to hear them. And if you like this wild ride, hit that like button, subscribe, and let's keep the conversation going. Because sometimes, the best way to fix a problem is to tow it away.